big win for the conservatives, and Polyev was getting the carbon tax zeroed. That would never have happened without, 5 years of the Canadian taxpayers fed and the conservatives just pounding away on axe the tax. And but unfortunately, the climate community really wants that carbon tax. And even if you recall the World Economic Forum's little video about You'll Own Nothing, one of the promises by 2020 is that there would be a global price on carbon. And so they've been actively beavering away on that. And at the last COP, which was COP 29 in the fall, just days after President Trump was elected, they finally got this thing organized. It's called Article 6. They've been trying to do this for decades. And there's a couple of explainers you can find online with the Nature Conservancy. So, and they actually say in here that the whole point of the Paris Agreement was not to save the planet, but to enable international carbon trading. So people probably have heard in the past, Premier Smith has talked about Article 6, and the whole idea would be that, let's say we sell our natural gas to China, then somehow that counts against or reduces the emissions count on our national contributions, nationally distributed contributions in Canada, because we would be reducing the use of coal in another part of the world, for example. But at the time, everybody said to her, no, that's ridiculous. But meanwhile, secretly in the background, they're still working very, very hard on this. And the election of President Trump, really threw a spanner in the works, because he's completely pulled back from the Paris Agreement, canceled all the previous climate commitments, won't be paying money into the loss and damage fund, pulled money out of some of the international organizations. He's forbidden U.S. scientists to go to some of the IPCC planning sessions and defunded them entirely. And we are probably going the other way with Mark Carney in charge, because as you mentioned before we went live, he wrote the book Values, and in it he thinks that 80% of the fossil fuels in the world must be kept in the ground. So that's a problem for Alberta, since we have 50% of the world's fossil fuels, or oil anyway, most of it in the oil sands, 50% of the free world's oil reserves. So that's a pretty big chunk.
Yeah.
So, and we haven't heard throughout the election campaign, and somewhat before as well, we've heard almost nothing from the tar sands campaign. Now, the tar sands campaign is a huge network of environmental groups and climate activists, and it's networked internationally. I did a little video about this called Pipe Dream, where I sort of count down all the things that would have to change in Canada for us to build a pipeline, all the laws we'd have to change, but we'd also have to disassemble this very tight network, very powerful network. And just so people know, after Mark Carney was elected as leader of the Liberal Party and de facto prime minister, he met with the senior ENGOs the morning before he was sworn in. Now, can you imagine, had he met with, say, the oil and gas group, or the Premier of Alberta and Premier Scott Moe, or Ontario auto manufacturers before being sworn in? It's almost like they extracted a climate promise from him. Who knows? No, I was not at that meeting. There hasn't been any reporting on it other than that the National Observer said that happened. So, it's a very powerful faction. It's not going to go away. And now we have this new climate change and environment minister, Julie DeBrusen.
Yes.
Yeah, who seems to be more extreme than Stephen Guilbeault, if that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, she has taken credit for the plastic straw ban, which is one of the most extremist yet simultaneously stupid things ever done by the last Liberal government. She's anti-pipeline. She's a climate zealot. She's one of those I ride my bike to work, so you definitely don't need a car kind of ladies. I think things are just going to get worse and worse. And while Mark Carney is telling some media that he would be in favor potentially of a pipeline. First of all, we should have a spider web of pipelines going in all directions in this country, given our vast oil and gas reserves. But you cannot build a pipeline without removing the bureaucratic and policy prohibitions to a private sector company coming and investing in Canada. And while Bill C-69 is there and all the crazy, gender-based analysis plus thrown into any sort of major energy approval process, you're not going to get a company coming in and saying, yes, let's restart Energy East. They're going to look at it and say, you know what, we're going to go somewhere where the investment climate is a little more favorable, like Iraq or Nigeria, where you just have to pay off the local warlord instead of deal with the Liberal government.
Yeah, that's right. About the time that Kinder Morgan dropped tools, stopped work on Trans Mountain expansion, and that was just before the Liberals were forced to buy it. It was PPHB energy bankers out of Houston who issued their newsletter, and they said that Canada had become hostile to business because the government was busy picking winners and losers. And they said that for all of the industries in Canada, this has an impact, especially because many of these industries, like mining, forestry, oil and gas, they have a 30-year horizon on development of projects. And ordinary people don't know that. But by the time there's a pipeline happening or a big project happening, people have been chipping away at that for 20, 30 years. So, that's a big investment of time and energy only to come to near fruition and have a bunch of activists show up and, cancel your project because of some little flower or beagle or whatever. And people don't realize Alberta actually was the leader in Canada on environment and climate issues. In 2002, we wrote the legislation on climate and environment. We had the first GHG trading process in Alberta only for large emitters, the carbon tax for large emitters. And, we had extremely good environmental regulations here in this province that was leadership at the time. And we've just been smeared ever since by all these activists and principally people like Stephen Guilbeault. He was part of Equiterre, and there's a very strong group of the leading environmental groups called the Strathmere Alliance. This was put together by Marlo Reynolds, formerly of the Pembina Institute. And these guys are very, very powerful and influential. They generally operate behind the scenes, but you can read about 13 or 14 articles that Parker Gallant has written about them. And Parker is a retired former international banker. So he's on a par with Mr. Carney in terms of his life experience in that field. So, Parker's articles show the tremendous influence, hidden influence that these groups have that people are not aware of. And they hear they send them their $30, saying, of course I want to save the planet for my children. In the meantime, these guys are out blocking every kind of energy or resource development, partly because they ultimately want to facilitate Article 6 international carbon trading. So this has been going on for a long time, ever since Kyoto. Kyoto was back in the 90s. It was the forerunner to the Paris Agreement. And at that time, Enron, which was a big energy company in the States, they were real promoters of this international carbon markets. And then they went bankrupt. So I find it interesting that there's an energy analyst named Anis Al-Haji on X, and he says that carbon accounting is the mother of all Enrons. So we're looking at a global Enron if we go into this carbon world. But that's what they want. So that, Stephen Harper used to say, oh, all these environmental groups want to turn Canada into a giant park. They do. A giant
Yep.
park where they buy and sell carbon credits. And I just want to get this in too. And you know who else is into it?
Brookfield?
The king.
Oh, the king. I just
King
assume it's
Charles
always
has.
Brookfield.
Oh, I'm sure they're into it very
Mm.
deeply, but I think with Entropy, in fact, out of Calgary. But the king has this thing called Terra Carta. So, to my mind, it's no surprise that he's coming to give the speech from the throne because they're all in it together.
Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. Members get instant access to all of our shows, invitations to exclusive events, and access to our premium content like live event footage and documentaries you won't see anywhere else. Only Rebel News Plus members can join the conversation by participating in the comments section of our new website. That way you can have your say too. More than anything, though, you'll be able to take pride in supporting real, honest journalism, and you'll help our talented team continue to do the work to push back on the establishment. We really can use your help. We need it, in fact. So thank you, and enjoy Rebel News Plus.